Good afternoon. We've talked about these several times in the work session. These are just for the audience. These are the rules that govern this session as well as the work session, specially called session. These are rules that you place upon yourself. And you can see in your packet there's highlighted what has changed in this proposed draft. For your consideration, it would only take one vote tonight. It's a resolution, so this would be a first reading. I can go through the changes if there are questions, or you can just go through them. Section 1, as it applies to these meetings, we're clarifying, even though our ordinance says that we follow the Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised edition, we will do that. Robert's Rules of Order requires you to technically take a motion to close debate. We're saying specifically that we do not have to do that. However, any member can move to make any motion to close debate at any appropriate time. If you go down to Rule 4, we've added this section, which basically limits the discussion by council members. You would have 3 minutes each to speak on 2 separate occasions on each item. It appoints the city manager to keep the time and to alert the mayor when the 3 minutes has been exceeded. Every member would get 2 opportunities only to speak on an issue, and you couldn't speak until everyone had an opportunity to have their turn. Those 2 opportunities, I'll point out, is not a minimum, that's the maximum number. If the city manager isn't present, the chief of police will serve as the timekeeper. If you go down to Rule 7, another change relates to non-members, people in the audience who speak. They would still be allowed to speak, but only one time for 3 minutes on a matter when recognized by the mayor. There is an exception to this. If the majority of the council votes to allow someone to speak a second time, that can be done, but it would require a majority vote of the council. At the end of the meeting, we'll still have a public comment time for people who are attending meetings. We ask that those people register prior to the meeting and fill out an index card to be provided to the city clerk so that she can provide that to the mayor. Yes?
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
I don't really see why we have that in there. It's sort of like the city putting up the speed limit sign says, we'd really like for you to do 50 miles an hour. I mean, that even needs to say you've got to fill a card out, and we need to take it out, I think.
Okay. Let's see. So you're saying it needs to be mandatory, not encouraged?
Well, one or the other.
So this could be encouraged with an amendment if someone wanted to.
I don't want to see it mandatory.
And so, in this section, it limits it to 5 people per meeting. If there's more than 5 that wish to speak at a meeting, we'll put them on the very next agenda. And this ensures that those who did register ahead of time would have an opportunity if we begin to go over, as our meetings can sometimes be lengthy. If you go to Section 2 on Rules of Order Procedure for Special Called Meetings, the only change here is that the Robert's Rules of Order newly revised would be followed. And Rule 4 is the same rules on yourselves. 2 opportunities per topic, 3 minutes each on each opportunity, so 6 minutes total per member. Same thing for members of the audience. And then we have Section 3 in the work sessions. The only change here is that members of the audience are limited to one time during the meeting for 3 minutes. Again, that can be, if the majority of the council would like to hear from the audience at a work session, they can overrule that by just a majority vote to allow someone to speak more than once. Those are the changes of this proposed standing rules. We'll try to put this together based on comments and recommendations at the meeting.
Got a question, Mr. Reed. If we don't have them fill out a card indicating their name, address, and topic of discussion, could we put something in here that those who do speak identify themselves? Because we've had on occasion, someone that comes up to speak and we don't know who they are.
Absolutely, and I'll point out, the mayor leads the meetings, and so the mayor, if you choose not to recognize someone speak, you can do so. So if someone refuses to give their name or where they're from, they do not have to get recognition to speak at the meeting. There's no guaranteed right for the public to comment. However, this council has found that to be something important that they want to happen. And so we've tried to allow for that as much as possible. And this just tries to limit, so that we can have a reasonable amount of public comment without too much.
This filling out the card would ensure these people in other words, priority. If you've got 10 people in the crowd that wanted to speak, but nobody signed up, and then you had 2 people that actually put in cards, and 2 people that scheduled in advance with the cards would have the priority to be first to be able to speak in the public meeting. So
That's correct. That's correct. You call them up because you have their cards.
Will, could this, as I understand this, there has been some questions about, because in previous rules, we had to call in ahead of time to the clerk. This states that it's by filling out the card prior to the meeting, so they could fill them out when they sign the sheet, if they decide they want to speak then and turn the card in.
Sure, absolutely. We can have cards right at the podium when you sign in, and also I suggest that we put the standing rules, post them right there at the door, so everybody can know what the rules are and understand what's happening at the meeting. Hopefully this just promotes convenience for everyone.
May I speak now?
And clarity. Yes, sir.
I have a little bit of problems with limiting the number of speakers. I also have a problem with taking away the power of the chair. The parliamentarian leader is the chair, is the mayor. And he should be allowed to determine whether somebody's time can be extended or not extended. It shouldn't have to go to a vote of the council. It's a cumbersome process. I'm looking at this as though what we're doing here is we're trying to legislate into effect limiting the number of people who could speak and how long they can speak. It's almost as though it's an institutionalized process. I'm comfortable with the process now and allowing the people to speak. And I'm comfortable with the chair being able to determine how many people can speak and how long. Now, if we want, I'll compromise my position for the time that they can speak, the length of time, but not the number of people that can speak. Because what that then does is gives the chair the power, and I've seen it here, and it's not being done under this administration, but I've seen it done where the chair selects who gets to speak. They can control the whole line of conversation and the whole flow of everything that will be put into the newspaper. If they get to pick who gets to speak, that controls the flow of information, not only in the council chamber, but to the public. So I have an issue with limiting the people who can speak. And I won't approve the plan as it sits right now, not on that area. I won't vote for it anyway.
Yes.
Mr. Ridley, you may be able to help me clarify. It says here that if time permits or no one is requested to speak in advance, the mayor shall open the floor to any person in attendance who wishes to speak. So it looks to me like it does give the mayor that opportunity to recognize if he so chooses or she so chooses.
That is in the rules. It's Rule 8, the first section.
Yeah.
And so what this does essentially, though, it does limit it to 5 people. So if 5 people registered, that would be it. If we did have extra time, if they didn't use the whole time, though, that provision allows the mayor to recognize someone else. So,
But it says the council may waive the requirements by majority vote.
That's
So if
correct.
we wanted to allow more than 5 to speak, this gives us provision to do that.
as long as 3 people were okay with it.
Do I hear a motion on this item?
make that motion.
To approve? Have a motion? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to amend the standing rules. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Souza,
No.
Councilmember Wyatt,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Curley, Mayor Mayberry.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item,